Okay, so continuing, I've popped this off the plan. You'll see that the leading edge has, each of the ribs has got a little notch in the leading edge, and that's to accept this 1.5 millimeter leading edge spine. It's nice and flexible. I've noticed that on mine it's not perfectly registered, so I had to do a little bit of opening up here and there just to get it to fit into place. But the idea is that this slots into the leading edge like that, and then you glue, and you could actually do this even ahead of time, glue the this leading edge part that I give you in the kit, top and bottom, so you end up with a sandwich, but these little notches register it and lock it into the ribs. And then the main reason for doing this is not really for strength, but to provide a hardwood core to the leading edge wood that helps you with the shaping of the leading edge. So basically provides, it'll be hard to sand through that. So you'll end up with the correct position for the leading edge, and then you just shape away from it. And you can use the patterns provided here in the jig sheet to guide your sanding. And I would, in my case, I would do planing. I'd plane it and then sand it. So that's the idea of that. But I can't really do that until I've got all the riblets in. And I can't do the riblets until I put in the shear webs for the spars. So that's that. The other thing I did was I popped the spoiler spar out of the sheet. And that goes in here. And I noticed that this is another thing I have to correct on my on the laser sheet. It's a small thing. But some of these slots are too narrow. These four are too narrow. That one was too narrow, and that one was too narrow. So you just need to take a razor, just open those up. Doesn't take long. I'll fix that on the next run of kits, if there is another run. And so then that spoiler spar drops in there, and that allows the spoiler to have a place to sit. It seats on that spar. So the next stage is to add in the shear webs, and they have to be glued in nice and carefully. You want a nice solid joint between the shear web and the top and bottom spars and the ribs, because those shear webs are what give a lot of the strength to the wing. If those shear webs are adequately secured, your wing will be strong. If you do not secure them well, you'll have a chance of having a wing fold on you, because the shear web will break away from the spar, and there'll be a concentrated weak point where that shear web is broken away, and then you'll get a stress riser at that spot and it'll break. I mean, for high star type glider like this, it would take a lot of stress. Maybe you'd have to be in a really strong thermal on the high start, or you'd have to be stretching it back really hard, or flying off of a electric high start, something like that, to cause a problem. But nevertheless, you want to make sure that the shear webs are good. So that'll be the next step. So these are the shear webs, sheet of them, and basically the shear webs are ones, twos, and threes. The ones, twos, and threes, which are all of these guys in here. So pop those guys out. Now I'm going to try to keep my videos a bit shorter, because the first one I did, which was so long, ended up just consuming so much of my computational resources. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to put a few in, and then I'll probably stop the video, and the next thing you'll see is the next step after putting in all the shear webs will be to insert the riblets. So I'll have like a shear webs video, riblets. I'll try to break it up into more smaller blocks so I don't get killed with computer time, and it's hard to So it's hard to edit it, but it's really hard to process super big, like 1 hour long video files. My computer just bogs down and you run out of room and all kinds of hassles. So I'm just going to take out a few of the shear webs. Put the wing back here. I'll just pin it down to make it easier to work with it so it doesn't shift around on me all the time. The other thing I'll do potentially in this video is just glue in the middle sheeting. Okay, that's in place. So you'll notice that the number 3 shear web has got a cant on one side. That's because it's glued in up against this the dihedral brake ribs, which are canted for dihedral. So that will have that. You also want to make sure that you sand away any little knobs or anything related to the gaps in laser cutting. So I could basically put that there and hit it with CA. These ones I'm going to use a thicker signer because while it is more convenient to just squirt some thin CA and have it soak in, the thick CA gives you a little bit of ability to control and put a bead of glue. So you make sure that you get the glue everywhere. And like I said, with the shear webs, you do actually want the glue to be everywhere so that you can be sure that they're properly secured. So for example, I want the glue on the end up against the rib, and a good bead of glue top and bottom. Okay, so now I can insert that and then just hold it for a second and the glue will take, and that one is secure. And the reason I do the shear webs first is because then, so now I'll put a number 2 in. The shear webs create a gap, a nice gap between them, and that gap is exactly wide enough to take one of the riblets. So for example, this is an R1D rib. I happen to have an R1D on the sheet. Go to number 2. And so if I pop that out, then that gap is perfect for, basically holds the riblet in the exactly correct position because you've got the gap there. Boom. So, okay, so same story again. Glue on the end that butts up against the rib. A bead of glue along the top and along the bottom. And insert the shear web. Good. That one. basically just repeat this process for all of them as you go. Each one gets pressed firmly in place, held for a second till the glue fires off. Okay. Okay, and I'll repeat that now all the way along. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glue in the, well actually this is easier. I can just hit this with Rapid Thin CA. Just make sure it's firmly in place and that it's nice and lined up on the ends. Okay. Each of these gets a drop of Thin CA on it. Okay, perfect. So that's in place. And now the leading edge sheeting for the front and the back. One thing I noticed with the sheeting is that it was a little bit short, so that's another little thing I'm going to change on the next iteration of the kit. All I did was I just glued, just with CA, I just glued a thin strip of balsa to the back of this, and same thing for that to the front of that one. This one just so that it overlaps the leading edge and it'll get sanded away eventually. So that goes in there. So with these, I'm going to just run a bead of glue on the ribs here. Again, I'm using the thick CA. Glue at the back and at the front. Okay. And then that just gets set in place there. And voila. Make sure you press it down firmly on this center rib. You can feel mine is a little, just a teeny bit shifted to the right. That's the one problem with using CA, is that once it's down, there's no lifting it up. So should have been a little, I mean, it's not serious at all, but for those of you who really love to have everything as perfect as possible for that operation, you probably want to use a wood glue, so you can just shift it and then you just pin it down. And you just put pins through to make sure that it's held down and firmly attached to the rib. Same story for this one. Okay. This time I'm gonna try to get it even, just with all right. I just realized I may have made a mistake. I think I was supposed to insert sub ribs in there and there. And possibly even I can't remember now. I'll have to look it up. Yeah. Don't know. So yeah, if you're watching this, keep an eye out, have a look. Maybe I'll mention it in the next video. Have a look to see if there are sub ribs that go in here, and if there are shear webs that go in there. I don't think so, but could be making a screw up there. Anyway, so that's where I'm gonna leave it for now. Next time you see this wing, all of the shear webs will be in, and then I'll put in all the riblets all the way through, and we'll do the leading edge, and then that will be the basic construction of the center panel will be done. And the next step will be to put in we won't do the dihedral, we won't do the wing joiners until we've built the other panels, because what we'll do for the wing joiners is everything gets set up, and then we tack all the wing joiner components into their position, and then flood it all with epoxy so that it sets up nicely. One thing to notice when you're doing the shear webs and the riblets is that where the wing joiner tubes are going to be, you want to make sure that there's a really nice tight joint here with no gaps, because you're going to fill in this compartment here that's made by the two spars and the rib and the shear webs. That compartment is going to be a well for epoxy. That epoxy is going to lock the wing joiner tube that holds the wing joiners. It's going to lock that and essentially connect it to the two spars and the rest of the wing. Okay, so we'll leave it for there. We'll leave it there, and come back when all the shear webs and the riblets, all the shear webs are in, and we're doing riblets.